Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I am your host John, and today here on the channel we're going to be talking about The Breakfast Club and its brand new Criterion Collection 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But first, before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't know anything about the film The Breakfast Club and you're just here for that 4K Blu-ray review, you guys can skip ahead right now. So back in 1985, John Hughes, who is one of the most popular directors of all time, also one of the greatest directors of all time, especially in the 1980s, wrote, produced, and directed The Breakfast Club. And The Breakfast Club, to me personally, the thing that stands out for it is this happens to be my father's favorite film. Now, I wouldn't say that this is a personal favorite of mine, but my father, who's not the world's biggest film fan, this one really stood out to him, and we watched it a lot. And because of his love for this film, I've seen this movie more times than I probably ever wanted to. I can't say that I'm personally the world's biggest Breakfast Club fan. When it comes to John Hughes, there's two sides to him. There's the guy who directed all the teenage films of the 1980s, like The Breakfast Club, for example, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And then in the late 1980s, he dabbled in, more adult-oriented films like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Uncle Buck, both of which star John Candy. Those two movies are my favorite directed John Hughes films. He also, produced and wrote a bunch of movies like Home Alone and Christmas Vacation. The guy clearly loves the Christmas holiday. A lot of his movies also feel like they are very much the late fall, early winter kinds of movies. Most of them take place in Chicago, in Illinois, like this movie, The Breakfast Club, takes place in Illinois. It stars Anthony Michael Hall, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, Paul Gleason, Ali Sheedy, and Emilio Estevez. So a stacked cast filled with actors who were in the Brat Pack at the time. Think of all the movies that were coming out at the time. All these actors would overlap. Molly Ringwald, a muse for John Hughes, obviously used her in a bunch of movies. Same thing with Anthony Michael Hall. So there's a great working relationship in here. But in this movie, which it just takes place over the course of one day in one setting, this easily could have been a play. I'm sure it's been adapted into a play numerous times. How could it not be? I didn't look into it, so I'm just guessing here. But how can it not be taking place Saturday detention, which, by the way, 9 hours they had to be there for? That's absolutely ridiculous. I guess that would teach you a lesson not to fuck up because, you had to be there, and this is 1980s detention, so that means there's no cell phones, there's nothing. And he won't even let them do anything, he won't let them sleep, he just wants them to write an essay about the kinds of people they are. Obviously we hear the narration about that at the very beginning of the movie and at the very end of the movie. And all the characters in this movie, they fit into stereotypes very much of the time. The brain, the criminal, the princess, the athlete, the weirdo, all of them, they all fit different stereotypes of the time. And that's probably why this appealed to my father, who graduated high school in 1984, this movie coming out 1 year later. I guess it reminded him of what it was like to be in high school. Now, the problem with me is I can't really relate to this kind of movie, and I guess I can't really relate to the other John Hughes movies of the time because it doesn't really reflect my teenage experience. It just feels very forced to me, which, again, a lot of people have pointed out it's very accurate. So it's just because of my personal experiences that I can't really relate too much to any of these characters. Like, I never had to deal with people like this. They're very much characters, and that's kind of the whole point of the movie, is that we kind of put everybody into groups when really we all are these kinds of people. When you break us all down, we all have little bits of the athlete, of the criminal, of the princess in us. We're all that because we're all human beings. You can't just put us in the groups. That's the entire point of the movie. It's just that for their experience, and there's there's a lot of posing going on. I just can't really necessarily relate to that in my high school experience. It's just, there was none of that really going on. But it is of the time, and I guess this is just how 1980s high school was. Of course, it's over-exaggerated. A lot of the elements in this movie, and a lot of John Hughes movies in general, have fantasy elements. Like when, first of all, smoking weed in the library. Come on, this fucking principal played by Paul Gleason in this movie is not going to smell that? I don't believe it. He's not going to notice somebody fell through the ceiling, or that the glass broke, when Emilio Estevez screamed in the room. Again, things that I just can't believe, but, it's a movie. You're not supposed to believe all that. And Judd Nelson actually said that, nothing in this movie is impossible. It's just unbelievable, which I guess, okay, that's a way to say, it can happen. It's just you don't really believe it. It's still possible. You just don't believe it would happen. And you know what? I guess that's a good way to write it off. And Judd Nelson, he steals the entire movie as Bender. Everything he says is very, very quotable. Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe? And then, of course, Paul Gleason going back to him. This is a quote that my dad loved. There'll only be 2 hits. Me hitting you and you hitting the floor. Or if you mess with the bull, you're going to get the horns. My dad loved those lines. He would use them all the time.
With fire exits at either end of the library. Show Dick some respect. Let's go.
And again, because of him, all those lines kind of stuck with me. And everybody else in the movie is doing a really good job. I would say that the person who, unfortunately, I think the way her character's written fails her. At least it's the most dated character, and that's the Ali Sheedy character. Like, this is what I mean about being forced. When she's talking about, like, when Emilio Estevez asked her what she likes to drink, and she said vodka. It's like, come on. I mean, you're just trying to act cool, which I guess she's just trying to fit in, but it's just like, I mean, it's so cringeworthy a moment like that. And then later in the movie when she gets the big makeover and she's wearing the pink shirt and she's got the headband in, I'm like, I mean, that's a huge downgrade in my opinion. And what Ali Sheedy said about that character was she didn't really like that as well. She just wanted to be more like, you know, hey, get the makeup off her face and show her face. That was her input on the character. But, of course, you know, she got overruled by the director and everything like that, which makes sense. It's his film, and he seemed to have a real connection to teenagers at the time. That's why these movies were all so successful. It's just that for me personally, I don't really run back to The Breakfast Club that much. Like, every few years I can rewatch it and be like, yeah, that's a good movie. I still would never put it in the upper echelon of John Hughes movies, at least for me personally. My top 3 would always still go Planes, Trains, Automobiles, Uncle Buck, then Weird Science. And I also have a real soft spot for Curly Sue because I watched that movie so much when I was growing up. That movie and K-9 are a big reason why I personally love Jim Belushi, just because I saw him so much growing up. Probably like Jim Belushi more than I like John Belushi, because I've seen more Jim Belushi movies just because of my age range. And again, Curly Sue and K-9. But I don't fault anyone who absolutely loves this movie, adores the movie. There's a reason why it is one of the most popular films of all time. I mean, right at the very end, the freeze frame into the fist bump. That alone is one of the most iconic moments in film history. I get it. I mean, how many movies in the 1980s ended on a freeze frame? It just was a 1980s trope. Just like the montages, it's just something of 1980s cinema. And 1980s cinema is my favorite era for cinema. And yet, The Breakfast Club, which is probably one of the most popular films of the 1980s, probably wouldn't even crack my top 50 1980s films. It's just, you know, it doesn't really connect that much with me. Even though I can respect it, I can enjoy it. I love the fact that it's my father's favorite movie, but it's just not necessarily my favorite movie. I prefer the adult-oriented John Hughes movies over the teenage movies. Even though Ferris Bueller's Day Off has really grown on me over the years. Ever since I got older, I appreciate that movie a lot more. It would definitely be in my top 5. But this one, maybe a few more rewatches down the line, even though I could probably honestly say I've seen this movie over 20 times. Maybe I'll learn to appreciate it a little bit more. But hey, who knows? But if you guys are a big fan, I love that for you. And maybe you want to pick up this new Criterion 4K Blu-ray that just came out.
Well, Brian, this is a very nutritious lunch. All the food groups are represented.
Well, here it is, the Criterion Collection 4K Blu-ray for The Breakfast Club. And now, don't adjust your eyes, it looks just like the previously released Blu-ray from the Criterion Collection. And actually, there has been a lot of Blu-rays released of The Breakfast Club, not just from the Criterion Collection, but I hadn't owned this film yet. I kind of had a feeling this was going to get a 4K Blu-ray upgrade at some point. That's why I never pulled the trigger on the Blu-ray from the Criterion Collection. Had it in my cart a million times, but decided, it's going to get that 4K Blu-ray release, right? So I'm always very hesitant to upgrade or just grab a Blu-ray. I'm always very hesitant to grab a Blu-ray of a movie because if I feel like it's going to get a 4K Blu-ray release, I don't want to get burned. And I have gotten burned by the Criterion Collection in that very same scenario numerous times. For example, Blowout, directed by Brian De Palma. I bought the Blu-ray the next week the 4K Blu-ray was announced. And I love Blowout, so I ended up upgrading to the 4K Blu-ray. And I was like, all right, it was a nice noticeable upgrade. Now this, it does have the previously packed in Blu-ray in here. So if you're somebody who already has this, it might not be worth it for you to upgrade. Let me explain. Because the only upgrade that you will be receiving is to the visuals, and that is it. There's a brand new scan in here, which you'll see right here. The brand new 4K Blu-ray disc is the only difference in here. You're only going to get this brand new scan. The audio isn't different. The extras aren't any different. The packaging isn't any different. You're just going to be upgrading to that brand new 4K Blu-ray, which has HDR10 and Dolby Vision on it. The audio, the LPCM audio, and The audio, the mono track, and the DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 are exactly the same. The extras are exactly the same. Now, I've never owned this movie on physical media before, and this has been previously released, obviously, on Blu-ray years ago, and it just shows you how Criterion used to just pay attention to extras more than they do now. I mean, there is a ton of different extras, including a making of documentary that I think was released in 2008, I want to say, and they have interviews with pretty much everybody except for Molly Ringwald and Emilio Estevez, which is funny because those are the two characters that in this movie are pointed out as being the two most popular characters. I guess they were too popular for the interviews because you get it with everybody else but the two of them, so when they talk about their two characters, they have to ask everybody else what they thought about them, which, you know, I don't understand why they had the big time interviews. But anyway, there are interviews with them, just, you know, archival kind of stuff as well. There's great interviews with all of them from back from 1985 on what's the show called? Today, which is awesome. It's a nice little time capsule piece. There's even the electronic press kit that was released at the time. You get all of that stuff in here as well. I mean, just loads and loads of supplements, featurettes, extras, bonus features, whatever you want to call it. Just loads and loads of them. I don't think they needed to add anymore, so, you know, it's fine for them not to have any new stuff looking back on it 40 years ago. I get that because they pretty much left no stone unturned already. Now, what about the audio? The audio, it's fine. I would say Criterion, this is the area that they've been lacking the most in, where they're just like, all right, we'll give them something, but we're not going to really give them all the bells and whistles when it comes to audio, which kind of disappoints me because all the other studios are doing this, especially the other boutique labels, where for the most part, they're giving us brand new audio tracks. Like Paramount, no, they're not really doing it. Arrow Video sometimes might not do it, but for the most part, they're upgrading the audio, giving us new Dolby Atmos tracks. Even if it's not a very good new Dolby Atmos track, they're at least giving us something new to like justify these purchases because they are expensive. Not the case here. The audio is fine. It's nothing that's going to knock your socks off. You know, it's a mostly dialogue-heavy film, but there are some great needle drops in this movie, so you would kind of want it to be mixed a little bit better than it is, but it's fine. If you liked it in the past, you're going to like it now. Now, the visuals. I'm actually conflicted on this because I even watched this with my wife and I asked her opinion because she actually just watched this a couple months ago on streaming, so I wanted to have an extra set of eyes on this bad boy. And yeah, you get the Dolby Vision and the HDR10. The Dolby Vision is doing what Dolby Vision does and makes things look more realistic, more natural. The colors in this movie, they look definitely, the colors, like they turned up the saturation just so slightly. They definitely warmed this up for the new 4K Blu-ray release. So if you're not somebody who likes the yellowing of new 4K releases, I remember people complaining about this with Amadeus, you're going to be disappointed with this one because the Blu-ray was definitely much cooler and the whites looked a little bit brighter, and this one they look a little bit more yellow, so people might be disappointed with that. I don't know necessarily how I feel. Overall, it's a darker looking 4K Blu-ray just in general. The Blu-ray's actually brighter than that. So if you're somebody who's like a brightness nut, you might be a little bit disappointed when you go to the 4K Blu-ray and notice that, like, you know, it doesn't feel like the HDR is doing a lot of work. Like, remember the neon blue lights in the library? I thought that was going to be a little bit more vibrant. It's not. I would say it's even more vibrant on the previously released Blu-ray, but this does feel like a conscientious choice. I just don't know if everybody is going to necessarily love that decision. I'm actually conflicted. I'm not too sure if I like the previously released Blu-ray more than I like the new 4K scan. I'm like going back and forth. My wife said that she liked the previously released Blu-ray more because it was brighter, even though it's definitely sharper on the new 4K Blu-ray. The previously released Blu-ray does seem to actually, I guess every time I've seen the movie, it looks more like the Blu-ray than it does on the 4K Blu-ray. I'd be very curious to see what other people think because, again, this is one of the most popular films of the 1980s. So I'm curious what other people think of this 4K Blu-ray when they get it. For me, I think I'm leaning more towards the Blu-ray. So for me, I'm going to have to recommend to people only to pick this up if you don't already own it. Or if you do want to upgrade, make sure you get it in that Barnes & Noble 50% off sale that's going on right now. Because if you don't own it, then it's probably worth it to pick it up, probably at full price, because you do get a lot here. And if you've never owned it before, you're going to get a ton of new featurettes. And again, the Blu-ray and the 4K are included. The audio's fine, so you'll be happy. Like, I'm very happy with my purchase. I wish I didn't buy it at full price. I would have been happier buying it in the Barnes & Noble 50% off sale that's going on right now. But I pre-ordered it months ago. I knew I was going to review this one here on the channel, so I'm not too disappointed. It just feels like Criterion was a little bit lazy in some areas, and a lot of time when they upgrade their movies to 4K Blu-ray from Blu-ray, it's really hard to justify going out and picking it up because all you're going to be getting is a visual upgrade. So there's no reason for you to pick this up at full price if you already own that previously released Blu-ray. And you should even think twice if you like that Blu-ray. you're not going to get the world's biggest upgrade when you go to 4K Blu-ray. So it might even just be worth it just to hang on to that Blu-ray and not even grab the new 4K Blu-ray. And that hurts me to say that because I paid for it full price, but I didn't own it yet. And even though I'm not the world's biggest Breakfast Club fan, I'm still glad to have it in my collection. It is a classic of the 1980s. I will rewatch it sometime down the line. Said it's my father's favorite film. My wife really enjoys this movie, so I'm glad to have it in my collection. But I can't give this one a very high grade. I'll give the 4K Blu-ray a solid, but not awesome, 7.5 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel, like Ben Rondo, Harvey Scott, and John Doe Juggalo, you could do that, or you could bump it up to the channel directors like Nicholas Head, Uncle V, Kevin Kruger, Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, and Stone Gasman. Or you can bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato and have your choice review and choice video every other month. But of course, guys, if you have no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.